This podcast absolutely, unequivocally, positively, 100% contains adult material. Mature audiences only, please.
Hey, welcome back to Me and Mrs. Always Right. We are the ADHD of podcasting, and I am your host, me.
And I'm Mrs. Always Right, and we're voted number one amongst people who do not have branches on their family tree.
My family is in that list. I am kidding, I think.
You hope.
If I hope for anything, I hope for branches. I really hope for branches.
Okay. Well, that's good.
And today we're coming to you from that little trailer park in Corrigan, Texas, baby. Tell us about Corrigan, Texas.
And not much to say, less than 1,500 people, and it's in Polk County. Polk.
Not poultry?
Not poultry,
Polk
not
County.
poke. Polk. P-O-L-K, Polk.
So this week we're gonna go back and we're gonna revisit a case that I know you did in your other podcast.
No.
Y'all haven't done it yet?
No,
And
only
it's just
because it's
everybody knows it.
It's so widely
But
done.
see, now I think you have an in on to do it on a different level, okay? And everybody knows we're talking about John Wayne Gacy, and everybody knows about John Wayne Gacy. But when we were driving to Austin to go to the True Crime and Paranormal Podcast Festival, you had started this podcast by Bob Motta called The Defense Diaries.
Yes.
And
I love listening. His voice is...
It's really good. It's really good, and he does a great job telling his story.
Very in-depth.
Now, if you don't know who Bob Motta is the son of Bob Motta, was Senior Jr. Bob Motta Sr. was on John Wayne Gacy's defense team.
Yes.
Along with a couple of other lawyers.
Yes.
Which I don't have. Listen to the podcast if you want to get the names, faces, and all that.
Oh my God.
But with that
amazing.
being said, we were listening to that podcast.
Yes.
And he really, he tells the story about how it was pieced
together, investigated.
That's not what.
Oh, sorry.
The guy's name was Peace. That led to
pieced. Yes.
Yeah, that led to the break in the case.
Yes.
And so he leads up with, how they came to him as a suspect and all that stuff.
Mm-hmm.
Where I started getting really, really upset with the case is when you find out through his podcast that more than likely, and I say that, number one, all opinions are my own, okay?
Yes.
Everything I'm saying, and I'm not here to review his work. I think his work is impeccable, but
I would agree.
I just have to say this is my opinion. But when you listen to his podcast, you inevitably come to the conclusion that the evidence against Gacy was planted.
The original
evidence that led to the second search warrant.
Yes.
Because they did search his house before,
mm-hmm.
and they didn't find anything.
Right.
Well, they said they did, but as it turns out through the evidence log, they didn't. And did you listen to it all the way through, right?
Well, I'm on season 2 of it.
Yeah, okay. But you listened to all of season 1, and you've heard about the red photo, back in the day we used to have our photos developed.
Yes.
And you would have to turn in your film, and they would give you a receipt off of the envelope.
Receipt, yes.
Well, they had this red photo receipts from a pharmacy where this film was getting developed, but it doesn't show up on the original search warrant or in the search inventory of the first time they searched Gacy's house.
Correct.
Now they did find a couple of things, but it didn't point to the person whose murder they were investigating at the time.
Right.
And how these murders actually took place over a course of several districts in the Chicago area.
Mm-hmm.
After I listened to this, not only did I realize...
Now, how far along are you?
Probably the same with you. I am in the second season.
Okay.
But you find out that had Chicago police done a more due diligence job,
mm-hmm.
they probably could have saved 10 people.
Yes.
And that these two agencies were not talking to each other. Des Plaines, Illinois. Would you ever been?
I've never been.
I've been.
Have you really?
I have been.
Oh, that's awesome.
But Des Plaines, Illinois was where they filmed The Breakfast Club at the high school in Des Plaines, Illinois.
Nice.
And the first franchise to McDonald's is in Des Plaines.
Oh, wow.
Yes, it's a museum now, right next to another McDonald's. But you find out that, where did I leave off? That the evidence was planted, and I started thinking to myself, did the ends justify the means on planting the evidence? Now, at the time that the evidence was planted, they only suspected Gacy of one murder, and that was of Peace.
Yes.
Nobody knew. So you had, you have to think about it from, nobody knew that Gacy at this point in time in the investigation was a serial killer, and it killed 33 people.
Right.
So did they put in jeopardy the whole case? Because had he not, which you find out after you listen to him, had he not talked and gave up and confessed everything that he said,
they would have had nothing.
That all the evidence would have been thrown out from this second search warrant, and that's everything of the bodies and everything.
But he caved. I mean, and it's so funny because he had so many. He knew a lot of people. A lot. He threw extravagant parties with a lot of big name people.
It was connected with the mayor of Chicago.
So, I don't know. Maybe I felt he was free and clear only because of his connections. But I was so surprised how quickly he caved. And I also am so surprised that all the questioning from the first time he went to the police station, how none of it was recorded.
None. And this comes into, when you're listening to it, he had a business attorney.
Yes.
And I don't know where the other attorney came from. Not MOTTA'S dad, but the other attorney, Emeretti, I don't know. I'm not good with names. Listen to the podcast to get all the names. But they're saying the day before he was arrested, he was in his business attorney's office, and he basically confessed everything there. And that there are things the cops knew that if Gacy only told his attorney, that they shouldn't have known.
Right. Right.
And that
there was a big leak there.
There was a big leak.
And it makes me wonder, did his lawyer realize, Jesus Christ, this guy, there's no way this guy should be able to be free, and that's why he leaked this?
But attorney-client privilege,
I understand. Yes, I understand.
That is highly unethical, and I believe illegal.
Yeah.
But I do think he leaked it to him.
I think so, too.
And to cover it up, okay? Now, the first time he was in the police station, after he was arrested on the 22nd of December, he gave a statement. But in that statement, he had not yet confessed to actually killing anybody.
Right.
And his attorney was in there with him. Not the business attorney. There was another defense attorney that was in there with him that did not assert his Fifth Amendment rights. Because once that lawyer would have told the cops that to stay away from my client, he's not answering questions, they wouldn't even be allowed to be in the same room to ask him questions.
Exactly.
But he never did that.
I feel because he felt that what he was told outweighed.
That's not his job, though.
I know it's not.
This is my point of this episode, is because this shit is kind of irritating to me, regardless of how you feel. And nobody thinks Gacy's a fucking angel. I don't think there's anybody out there.
Oh, no. Absolutely
I say
not.
anybody. There's some psycho sitting off in a ditch and fucking somewhere. But go ahead.
Well, what I was going to say is I feel by the time Gacy was caught, he mimicked another serial killer at the time.
Gacy was mimicking a serial killer?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. And he says a little about what was going on in this other case that had happened prior to his. And a lot of things that he did mimicked that. So I feel he wanted to make a big name for himself as well. And
but did he? Because if he did, he wouldn't have started. He killed his first victim the year I was born. This is how long this has been.
Well, you know what? I have a feeling that it actually happened long before that. I really do.
I agree with you. But this is what we know about, right?
Right. This is the only thing that's been charged, or he's been charged with. And out of the 33 33 that he was only charged with, less than that.
Oh, I don't know about that. I know 6 still remain unidentified.
Yes.
But back to his lawyers in the way I feel that they were unethical.
Yes.
So in the second time that he sat down to talk with the detectives, his lawyer said, "Go ahead, John, tell them everything." When they should have never. And you know why they did that?
So
to cover up the fact that they told the detectives about the fucking murders.
Yes,
I agree. So, and you and I, from the time we got together, I know you've always been a crime person. Okay,
yes.
We've had to sit through up to million episodes of the first 48, and the more I watch shit like that with you, the more I cannot stand the detectives' methods. Right, because they're allowed to lie to you.
They're okay to lie, and
even with that, they should have never planted the evidence.
Right.
You almost, looking back on it, had things not gone the way they gone.
Yes.
And Gacy confessed.
He could have walked and continued to kill.
He could have walked.
Yep.
And there's things in this podcast that you talk about that his dad only went after the insanity plea, but because by the time he got put on the case, he had already confessed. There was nothing else for him to do except to try to spare his life.
Right. And I don't feel the whole insanity thing with him he thought he was smarter than everybody else. And I was going to look up his IQ because I heard or read somewhere or something that a lot of serial killers that are like this have a very high IQ compared to normal. I want to say that they say normal's 80-ish.
I think.
No, I think it's 80 to 100 is normal.
Well, my IQ's 300, so I mean, I don't know.
Ooh, well, look at you. I'm at maybe a 4, I guess.
That's why we get along so well. I got you, babe.
Thanks, hon. Thanks.
But did you not have any misgivings or anything when you heard about the methods that the law enforcement went through to get the guy?
I was a little upset. The funny thing is, nowadays I really don't feel that the law enforcement would have been able to get away with a lot of the things that they got away with back then. Times were different.
You don't know that shit's still not going. Not.
But there's
I don't know
cameras
if it's rampant.
everywhere.
Yeah, there is cameras everywhere. They took photos. The evidence tech took photos of all the evidence they took from Gacy's house on the first search warrant.
Yes.
That photo receipt
the second
never
search
shows up. I'm talking about the first one.
Right.
Okay.
Right.
They took photos from all that, and that receipt does not show up. And that detective says he picked it up out of the kitchen trash can.
Mm-hmm.
And now the evidence tech, there was a couple of other things found in the trash
Yes.
can. I think the rope. Shit. Something else was found in there that the evidence tech took pictures of.
Yes. I can't remember what it was either.
Not the photo receipt.
Right.
The other there was another detective that took the trash off the front curb. Actually, he didn't take it off the front curb. He took it out of the garbage truck. But
Yes.
once we put trash on the out to be picked up,
it's free game.
Public property.
Absolutely. Free game.
But that detective never saw that receipt come out of there either.
No, because he didn't open it. He just handed it off. Someone else.
So knowing that the evidence was planted against Gacy and that the second search warrant, and they faked the smell of what they refer to as putrid flesh.
Yes.
When they're talking in the bathroom, because the evidence tech was actually on the first search warrant, was in the crawl space. And was, he asked him, "Did you smell anything?" And he said no.
Right.
You want to show him the picture of the basement real quick?
Yeah.
So there it is right there.
Crawl space.
And this is after it's been excavated for the bodies.
Yes.
But so if you're down in there and there's putrid flesh smell, then you're going to smell it on the first search warrant.
Yeah, you would think so. But now I do remember hearing when Bob was talking about this that originally when they went in for the crawl space underneath the floor, that it was standing in water, so they did turn on the sup pump
Right.
or whatever it was, and it got rid of a lot of the water.
But that was during the second search warrant.
Right.
Not the first one. And I'm only really focusing on the first search warrant because
Well, I feel on the first one, he probably didn't crawl under there. He might have just like...
If you open the hatch...
Right, and poke your head in, you're going to smell.
It's going to knock you out.
Yes.
Right? Because the second search warrant was based solely off of evidence from the first search warrant.
Yes.
And then I'm not going to say her name, but the lady that worked at the farm, the girl at the time, that worked at the pharmacy, who was wearing the jacket of the young man who was killed.
Yes.
Said that's where she had left that photo receipt. But in her first statement, she never talks about it. She talks about the blueberry chapstick.
Right.
And after listening to this podcast, you can kind of see where one detective kind of baited her into coming in and giving a statement about that photo receipt, which was a very well thought out. He said half of the statement was why she left the photo receipt in the jacket.
Yes. It was very lengthy.
Very lengthy.
Yes. Yes.
And I just want to know. I mean, I really want to know, are you okay with the fact that Gacy was arrested under these circumstances where officers planted evidence?
No. The fact that he was arrested and found out and all of that, I'm okay with that. But the way they went about doing it, I don't agree with. And I think that's why Bob is having so much investigation go on now versus what actually went on then.
Basically, what he is doing is he's introducing a narrative that the John Wayne Gacy story can no longer be told the way it was originally told for the last 45 years.
Right.
You always are going to have, because he pretty much proves the fact that and I'm going to tell you in this podcast, one of the detectives admits it.
Yeah. It was not to be talked about, and so he didn't talk about it for 40 years. He did not admit to
doing it.
Right.
But he knew it was planted, and his take on it was, well, Gacy's dead now, all the appeals are exhausted, so why not say it?
Right. Nothing's going to change because this was a bad guy. He got what he deserved.
But it does jeopardize the other detectives' cases from that point on. Does it not?
Well, not only that. I mean, and he mentioned that.
He does
now
mention
everything that has been touched previously is tainted. Even if it's not.
I know if I was sitting in jail.
Oh, yeah.
And that detective, after hearing that shit, and that detective had been on my case, I would definitely be filing for new. And now all of a sudden, Gacy's the original defense attorney's files can't be found. He wouldn't agree to an interview.
No.
Bob's trying, and up until this point in the podcast, he hasn't got an interview.
Right.
And you would just think that if you, as a client, regardless of what your crime is, you are entitled to legal representation and a fair trial, right?
Yes.
I in no way do I think Gacy should have ever have walked, but I would like to know that when it's my turn, if not when, if
plan on going to jail sometime.
I have never planned on it, no matter how many times I've been.
Well, good.
I never woke up and wrote down on my to-do list, yeah, let's go sit in jail for a little bit.
I want to go to jail today.
And that brings up a point that, because I have firsthand experience at the age of 17 with a case I was involved in, and that, of course, I did it. I broke the law. I knew what I did. But at 17, those detectives took me in the room, and they're like,
No.
They're like,
we're your friends.
We just want to help you.
Yeah.
Help us help you.
Absolutely. Help us get this case against you.
And then
that's what they're doing.
And then when Nice Guy doesn't work, how do you feel about 99 years in penitentiary? Oh. And at 17, I was fucking terrified.
Oh, yeah.
And I felt they made me feel like if I confessed to what I did.
Oh, they go easy on you.
Oh, yeah.
And they're not even the ones that set the precedence on that anyway.
So, yes, I was convicted. I was found guilty. I did not spend any time in prison over this crime.
You did
I've done my time.
Time,
it's
your
years,
sentence.
It's years ago.
Yes.
But I still feel, looking back on it, had I known then what I know now, I would have been lawyer. And just like now, lawyer. I don't give a fuck if I trespass a half inch over somebody's property and get the lawyer. I will never, ever again talk to a cop without a fucking lawyer.
Right.
Ever.
Right. No matter what.
No. Well, unless my truck gets stolen, and then I have to.
Oh, well, yeah.
But then I'm not under any suspicion of a crime.
Well, that's true, unless you did it.
I didn't do it?
No, you didn't do it.
Oh, thanks.
No problem.
FYI, your spouse cannot be compelled to testify against you either.
That's true.
So find a ride or die.
Yeah.
You wouldn't testify against me, would you?
No.
For anything?
No.
Nothing.
No. Should I? No.
No. You're
No.
awesome. But yeah, so I just think the more and more I listen to his podcast,
he's
the
amazing.
More and more pissed off I got. Not at him.
Agree.
Right? He's doing what a lawyer does, and he's looking at the evidence objectively.
Yes.
And then when you find out that the cops are kind of crooked, they did what they did shit they probably shouldn't have done to get their man.
Right.
That sooner or later Gacy would have fucked up. Okay.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely.
And they would have eventually caught him. It wasn't worth the risk of planting the evidence, right? And now had because that dude was driving around in that guy's car for a fucking year and a half.
Right. Right. Because he got the car from Gacy.
Yeah. And basically, after listening to this podcast, you realize Chicago PD didn't investigate any of these missing persons.
They really didn't do anything.
Because most of them were gay, and people just looked down on fucking gay people.
Well, not only that, but the crime rate was probably so high. This is back in the 70s when crime rate everywhere was very high. You had so much going on that you didn't necessarily have the means to investigate every single thing. And they did look at a lot of these as runaways.
Yep.
The runaways.
Yeah.
They'll be home.
Thanks,
sometime.
boomers, for that fucking hippie moment. Now, all the missing persons cases in the 70s were considered runaways after the whole hippie fucking fad.
Yeah.
Yeah.
True. But we're not hippies and we all don't run away.
No. But yeah, so after listening to Bob Motta and the Defense Diaries, which he does such a good. He
is an excellent storyteller.
Man, I wish this fucking podcast was as good as that podcast.
I would.
We're just going to have to settle for mediocrity, okay?
Yes.
But this was just something that had really, really got me going, because you already know how I feel about certain issues of law enforcement,
right? Right.
And I feel that.
Yes, I can say that I had a little stint with law enforcement.
Yeah, but I think it's a completely opposite.
Yeah, completely opposite, I guess you can say, but you didn't talk to me the whole time. I'm just kidding.
You did work for a law enforcement agency.
Yes.
You were not a peace officer.
No.
But
no,
you dealt with criminals on a day in and day out basis.
Absolutely.
Which, for whatever reason, and I just think it's because you're naturally a nice person, but you don't take shit.
I'm not really a nice person.
You really are.
I really don't take any shit.
But you don't take any shit.
No.
But you earn the respect of all the fucking inmates that you oversaw. And, you didn't let them get away with shit, but I felt, you know what? I never worried about you going to work after I learned how these inmates were towards you, because I think they would have protected you long before they would have protected anybody else in there.
They talk about being a duck and things like that in law enforcement that, Do you
want to explain what a duck is?
It's just somebody who gets involved one way or another with an inmate, you hear what you want to hear and blah, blah.
Did you see any of that?
I did. I mean,
did you
it
really?
happens all the time.
Trademark.
I know. It happens all the time. It's like, you think whatever you want to think. They're like, oh, I bet you live on a farm. I bet you live in the country. And I'm like, sure. whatever, but also at the same time, they knew that I treated them like they're human.
Could you have done that to Gacy? Knowing what and I know you've seen some fucked up crimes. Because they're rap sheets available to you.
Absolutely. It's what they want. They're still people, and I looked at these people that this is somebody's brother, sister, mother, cousin, aunt, uncle, husband, wife, and would I want somebody to treat my family members like some of these people were treated by
and
other.
You saw some piss poor treatment, right?
Yes, I did.
Just because of who they were.
Yes.
And we live in a system, and I know we're off of the Gacy thing for just a moment. You derailed us again.
Sorry.
But we live in a system that you're supposed to, once you're done and you've paid for your crime, that should be a reset.
Yes.
Until you prove you can no longer live amongst us again.
Right.
Right. Because if you take my case in particular, I was just young and stupid, and I made very, very stupid decisions at 17.
Right.
But I've turned out to be
Yeah, you're okay.
See, that's where I was going to go. I was going to use half-ass decent.
I think you're a decent guy. You absolutely are.
I just try to treat people like I want to be treated, and that's it. I don't want to fuck with your shit. You do you, I do me, leave me the fuck alone, and everything's good, right?
I got you.
That's just who I am.
Yes.
But I don't like seeing, here's one of the things that leads me back to why this upset me so bad. We're driving down the road, we get pulled over. You roll the window down. Where are you going? None of your fucking business.
Does
right?
it matter
How
where
is
I'm
that
going?
your business, right?
It really has no bearing where I'm going, where I'm coming from.
Right.
If you pull me over for speeding or whatever.
What's in the car? What's this, that? You just issue me a fucking ticket and let me go. Because the cops, what you understand is the cops are never there to help you. I've never seen a cop, and you may feel different because you've been on the other side of it, but I've never seen a police officer pull over to help somebody change a tire or to actually help. Now, the sheriff's department does have courtesy patrol for that, but that's their fucking job.
Right.
I'm talking about officers, right? And maybe I'm hard on them. And I've met some really, some nice officers. Just do your job. If you're pulling me over and you feel like you have sufficient evidence to write me a ticket, write me the fucking ticket.
Right.
Let
me get on my way.
I think a lot of people think that if they overspeak, that the cop's going to let him off. Oh, I was only speeding because, my foot was mashed down really hard on the accelerator, and I don't know why. It's like, shut the fuck up.
It
take your
went
ticket.
to sleep, so it just goes down further, so I just go faster.
That's what court's for. Argue your case in court. And now everybody's got a fucking camera. Record your interactions with law enforcement. Record it. And that, with that being said, there's nothing else to say. The only thing you have to do if a cop asks you is, if he asks you to step out of the car, you got to do that. You don't got to say anything fucking else. And I think that's why this podcast and the way these cops planted this evidence really just fucking pissed me off, because I think they could have eventually, he would have fucked up.
Right.
He knew he was being watched. They had people on there. He would have fucked up sooner or later.
Yes.
He had a federal lawsuit on that he was actually suing them for following him.
Yes.
That next day, the day after he got arrested, that's when he was supposed to go to court.
Yes.
I think that was another one of the reasons why they stepped this up.
I mean, now when you say plant evidence, now they did not make up stuff to.
Technically, yes, they did.
I mean, what I'm saying is they didn't make up that this receipt was a real receipt. They didn't make up anything like that.
No.
It was
The
real.
receipt real? Yes. But they didn't get the idea.
Where they got it from maybe was not necessarily true. And when they got it, not necessarily true.
Here's what they knew. They knew she wore priest jacket.
Yes.
They knew after they went up to the pharmacy and they got the logbook for the film, they knew that she had submitted a roll of film to be developed. Now how she got the idea to say that she put it in his pocket, that's where you're up for debate. Because if she would have put it in that pocket to begin with, I think she would have said something to the effect that night, not 9 days later.
Not necessarily though, because
think?
if let's say I put a receipt in my pants pocket, I'm not going to necessarily remember it. And then next thing you know, I've washed it a week later when I wash clothes and I'm like, what the, so it might not have been something that she thought about right at that moment.
So when you think, when you hear that the detective called her house and she wasn't there, but left a message with her mom saying, we need to talk to her about receipt number 16,
right.
the specific number on the receipt. Can you have her come and talk to us? That wasn't a hint or quote?
It's very possible. I'm just saying it wasn't made up. No, it wasn't made up. It was just the way it was.
It wasn't made up, but it was planted.
Yes, it was just the way that it was inserted into the narrative that they had going on.
Because what he's telling me that is if that receipt was truly found in the trash, it's not in his house. It's just in the trash. And there's numerous ways you can explain to how something got into the trash outside of your house. They had to have the receipt
right
in the house to get the second search warrant.
To be able to get into the house. Yes.
The second time, yes.
Yes.
And you go in there and they do eventually find the bodies, and you're grateful that a guy like Gacy's off the street, you know? But you put so much risk that 33 bodies become unusable in court.
Mm-hmm.
And then without the bodies, you don't got shit.
No, you have nothing.
Now, Peace was dumped in the
river,
the Des Plaines River, right? His body, I think, I still haven't got to the point where I heard how they found his body.
Okay.
Have you?
So have you found?
It doesn't matter. Just tell me.
Have you listened to where they found the coat, his piece coat?
No.
Oh, okay. So you're not as far as I am.
No, but just tell me for the sake of the podcast.
I cannot remember if they've found it. I don't think that they have. I don't think I'm that far into it, but they have found his jacket.
Okay. So eventually they do find his body at one point though, right?
I believe so, yes.
See, I think at that point in time, and I know it was found in April, I just don't know how, they would have had plenty right there to arrest him. And I know that's 4 months. I know.
Right.
And you're putting so many more people at risk.
A lot more, because this guy was fucking on it.
I get it. But at that point, when they find Peace's body, they got him.
Yes.
Right? Hey, we found this body. We think it's linked to him. Then you get a search warrant, and you don't risk fucking up your whole case.
Right.
They're grateful. I mean, I say they're grateful. They're lucky.
Yes.
That Gacy's lawyers told him to tell him everything.
Yes.
And I still think that was to cover their own fucking ass.
I would have to agree. Absolutely.
Do you think, and we're running short on time now, but if you were a lawyer and somebody had come to you with the most despicable of fucking crimes, like and you were retained, would you you can't
you're not supposed to. No. I not that I wouldn't want to. And what was it? The lawyer said, hey, if he leaves, shoot his tires out.
Yes. Right. Because that was right after he confessed to the business attorney.
Yeah.
He's and the guy's like, we got families around here, we can't.
But he's telling them that this is a very bad guy and he needs to be.
And at that point right there, I feel he is violating his attorney-client
already.
Privilege.
Yes. Yes.
Because you cannot do that. Mm-mm. That's the one thing that prosecutors can't have access to is you and in your attorney's conversations.
Right. I can tell you when I was a lot younger, way back in the day when I rode dinosaurs, that I actually thought about going to law school.
Yeah, I think you told me that.
I didn't, but I thought about it.
I mean, that would have been cool. I mean, for your interest in crime.
Yeah.
It would have suited you great.
I think so.
Do you ever regret it? Looking back on it?
No, not really.
Does your podcast, Crime with My Coffee, Inglorious Plug, does that help you with your need to be involved in the crime world?
Yeah. I'm totally satisfied. I'm good where I'm at. Absolutely.
Well, awesome.
Yeah.
All right. Well, you know what?
About
Thanks for listening to me on this. You didn't really help me, give me a real opinion one way. I just feel like I was ranting. That's how much
it's fine.
it kind of,
I mean, you're entitled to the way you feel, and I agree. The way they went about doing it was not correct. They got so lucky that he just squealed and gave
That's right.
everything
Yeah.
up. Had he not done that, they would have been so screwed.
Yeah,
so
because from what Bob's saying, that receipt would eventually been found to have been, planted evidence.
Mm-hmm.
And he said all of that shit would have got suppressed. So.
Oh yeah.
Well, hey, we appreciate you listening. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please email us at meandmrsalwaysright@gmail.com. All complaints go to Trevor the intern.
You can also find us on Facebook, Instagram, YouTube, and used to be Twitter, now X.
And help support this podcast by becoming a member at patreon.com/meandmrsalwaysright, where you get pre and post show content right along with unedited episodes.
Bam. We kind of been doing this.
And if you've made it this far, Defense Diaries, wherever you get your podcast. And we actually got to meet Bob Motta.
Yes.
That dude is so fucking cool.
He is awesome.
I mean, I ain't saying I got a man crush, but
But man crush could go along with it.
I think you talk about the podcast you want to be.
Oh, yeah.
There it is.
Yes.
Right. But
yes.
My dad wasn't, a top-notch defense attorney with some cool-ass fucking tapes with a serial killer. So
that's
I have
true.
nothing to talk about but this bullshit right here. So
I'll never be on his level.
No. Well, we appreciate you listening. I love you, babe.
I love you too, honey.
All right, we got a big weekend going, so
yeah, we do.
All right, I'll see you next week on our 3-year anniversary show.
What? 3 years?
3 years.
I want cake.
All right, get us a cake. We'll eat it right here on the podcast.
Hell yeah.
All right.
Now, do you want chocolate cake though, right?
Look, I've been asking you for how long we've been married?
Now you want an ice cream cake? That's for your birthday.
Is it?
That's for birthdays.
You say that, but I never get it. I never get one ever.
Well, we can't have it here because as much as we talk, we're not eating ice cream.
Okay, get us a small anniversary cake, and let's have cake to celebrate.
Like cake, like wedding type cake.
No, cake made of cardboard that we can't actually eat, and we're just going to show. What other kind of fucking cake is there?
Well, and there's like birthday cake, which is like a celebration cake.
That's cake. That's cake.
Speaking of cake, so I have a coworker of mine whose daughter's having a quinceañera or yetta or whatever.
Quinceañera, yep.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I was kind of close this weekend, and I did remind him that, because apparently they have big cake like a wedding or something, but it's big cake, right?
It's a big time in Hispanic culture.
Yes.
When you turn 15. That's your equivalency of becoming an adult.
Yes. Anyway, I just reminded him that I really like cake. So maybe next week when I go back to work, I'll get cake.
Okay.
And I'll be happy.
All right. Well, I love you.
I love
Thanks
you too,
for sitting through my rant.
Oh, no problem, baby.
All right. I'll talk to you later.
All right.
Bye.
Bye.
Bye. Merle.
I love Merle.
I know. Everybody knows.